All right, everyone. So you should have a couple of polls that popped up on your screen. Answering those questions will give us a better sense of what you might need, and we'll bring that back to the Q&A towards the end of the session as we answer more questions and get some more insights from Melissa and Raisa. All right, Raisa, I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, great. Hi, everyone. This is Raisa, and I apologize if there's babies screaming in the back. I'm in Minnesota this week, and my nephew and niece are over. But nice to meet you all. Like I said, I'm Raisa. I've been at Accenture for the last 3 years. It's hard to believe. I came in through graduate internship at the University of Michigan, and that's where Melissa and I crossed paths, and I went through the recruitment process there, interned between my first and second year, and then ended up getting an offer and came back full time and been living the dream since. So it's been really great. I got brought in, like I was finishing my master's in public health at the time. So naturally, like Melissa said, it made sense for me to come in through the health and public services industry. Prior to Michigan and Accenture, my background was in health. I was interested in staying in healthcare, so that worked out pretty fine. And then my internship project ended up being a health supply chain project, and I ended up developing a lot of my network in that space, and that was something that I had never worked in before. And then so naturally, when I came back for full time, that's where my network was, and I've lived in that enterprise operations world, which is supply chain finance, rev cycle, the last 3 years. And then, like Melissa talked about it a little bit, we do have our industries, which, are, the 4 that she mentioned, but then within it, there are, a ton of functional expertise that you can build. So even within healthcare, we have folks that dedicate their time in the provider space or the health systems. There are people who dedicate their time in the payer world. And then within that, right, I'm in the enterprise operations function, but, there are folks that do cloud implementation. There are folks that, do utilization, et cetera. So, in terms of what you can get into within each of the functional areas, it's kind of limitless. And it's also a great way to build some functional skills that you can take to other industries, right? So for example, I'm in health and public services, but if there's a project, supply chain project that came in products industry, for example, and I have the expertise, you can work on that. So there is flexibility, even though you're kind of situated in your industry. And then in terms of, why I considered Accenture, there were recruiting out of Michigan that year. And for me, like Melissa mentioned it was the people was the #1 differentiator at Accenture. Everyone I talked to, including Melissa, was, the most down-to-earth, smart, engaging folks that I've talked to. And, it seemed like culturally was a fit, a place where I can show up as myself and, thrive in a healthy work environment, as well as be challenged and learn a lot. So it really was a no-brainer once I'd, gone to some of the coffee chats and talked to consultants, managers, recruiters at Accenture. So that was the main reason why I came into Accenture. And then specifically consulting, I was at 2 years of experience prior to coming to grad school. So I was still very much an early careerist. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to come into consulting was, I at that time, I really wanted the rigor, especially as an early careerist, and to, pick up some key skill sets that are going to be really valuable for really any industry, regardless of whether I chose to stay in consulting or not. And that's been one of the main things I've been building in the last couple of years. It's, I wanted to have the ability to work in a fast-paced environment, have variety in the kind of items that I work in every day is really different. The projects that I've also worked in have been very different, anywhere from like, a year-long implementation project to a 6 weeks, really intense assessment. So it really varies. And, on a day-to-day basis, my work consists of, meeting with clients, figuring out what kind of issues they're having, and regardless of whether it's a short-term project or a long-term project, we're there to help our clients meet their business needs. And that's pretty much what most of my day is dedicated to. And yeah, I'm not sure, and Chelsea, anything else you want me to cover up on, but I'm happy to take any questions related to consulting. I'm based out of the New York office. And yeah, like I think I gave a pretty wide overview of what I do, but I'm happy to take specific questions related to that.
Sure.
Yeah, we really appreciate hearing your experience, especially. Also, Raisa, by the way, I think we lost your video feed.
Oh,
Yeah, we can hear you. It looks like you're frozen, but we can hear you.
Yeah,
oh, the internet might not be the best.
no worries.
Sorry
That's
about
fine.
that.
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
hear you.
I redid it, so
Oh
hopefully,
yeah, better.
okay, awesome.
So
Awesome.
I think someone had a question about casing. So
Okay.
so I was going to talk a little bit about case interviews. Case interviews can be very intimidating, but the idea, there is no real one right answer. So I'll give you an example. So one example of a case that Accenture would not give is, okay, how many planes do you think are in the air right now? And, you know, kind of breaking that down. So you have to think about, okay, Delta, United, American, UPS has planes, FedEx has planes, other private planes, things like we're not going to give you a case like that. But if you go to an interview, there may be something like that because they want to really see how you think and how quickly you think. And I think it's important to be able to speak confidently and develop your hypothesis and develop your recommendations kind of on the spot, because you're not going to know what that prompt is. One example for us is like, we have a beverage company that comes to us and says, okay, we really want to expand outside of our market. We want to expand into different products. And we're based in Newark, New Jersey. And we want to think about like, how would you suggest that the client move forward? So you may say, okay, well, there's all these other beverage companies, but they're in the Coca-Cola. So you're asking questions like, okay, you may market this brand, you may market that brand. What other brands may be possible? And then think about the number of people. And so some of the cases are more quant heavy. You're going to have to be doing more math. There is no calculator, so this is like math in your head. So you want to keep this simple. Like, use your own personal experience. You may say, a fan of this type of brand, they've expanded, they've done well. And I think that if you expand into this market, given this number of people, this could be successful. So it could be something that I just come up with, but it's just really trying to figure out how people think and not getting so stuck on one path, making sure you're using your interviewer to guide you, like asking those questions. They may say, I'm not going to tell you, but you can ask like, oh, well, how many people are this? They'll say, I don't know that. And then you move on. But it's really getting a sense of someone really being able to think outside the box and provide additional solutions. And so that's what kind of in a gist, what a case would look like. But they're very different. It depends on who you meet with. They may just give you a case of a project that they worked on, a problem that they had, and they want to hear what your solutions are because it could help them at the client. So that happens a lot as well.
Yeah, and I think to add to Melissa's point, I mean, I think the biggest reason why casing is really popular in consulting is, you know, it's, yeah, we want you to get to the right answer, but it's really more to figure out how you think, because you know, you'll show up to a client environment and there is a problem, right? And then that's sort of the case. Usually there's a problem, and then your interviewer is really looking to see how you would go about, you know, what kind of methodology would you use to figure out a problem. And it isn't really about doing mental math to figure out how many golf balls you could fit in an airplane, but more so just how you would even go about solving that problem. So I think if you kind of think about it in that way, where it's just a problem and they want to know how you would solve it, and you're less, the math then becomes a little less intimidating.
What was your process, Raisa?
Yeah. So I think mine was actually, my case was related to healthcare. I think it was a insurance company, and they were going into a new market, and we had to think through how, you know, what type of demographics, you know, what kind of information they would need to, you know, figure out which area. I don't remember too closely, but it was basically just like a market analysis case. And that was kind of the same experience where my interviewer was really more interested in how it solved the problem. And yeah, there was a math element to it, but that was really not the emphasis. And it was more so just how you would go about solving a problem. And is it, like I said, is it methodological? Like, yeah, you could, creative, whatever, but you're not, they just want to make sure that the way that you think through things is logical and would make sense to a future client.
Yeah, because the issue is that, like, even as an analyst, you could be in front of the C-suite, you could have to present, and they want to make sure that you have confidence, even if you have no idea what you're talking about. If you sound like you know what you're talking about, that goes a long, long way. So if I sound like I know 1,000% that this is the right thing we should do, they'll be like, okay, because a lot of it is the confidence. And so even though we all have different personalities, some of us are introverts, some are extroverts, that doesn't really matter. It's more so like really having confidence in yourself, being able to speak, logically and clearly and concisely. And that's what we tend to look for. Someone's asking about MHA, someone with project certification, would that benefit your pay? So I think it's helpful, but I always, because people ask me a lot about going back to school, and I'm like, if someone's not paying for it and you don't have a plan, don't go back to school. Like, don't go get a degree just because you have nothing else to do and you're bored. Like, don't do that, because you're not going to recoup what you spent. So I think it's really important to have a really set plan, or you just really have a passion for healthcare and you're like, I really want to get this degree. But if you think you're going to get this degree and it's going to pay off with a high salary, most of the time that's just not going to be the case. I think if you're like a rock star, whether you have a bachelor's, master's, MBA, or PhD, that part doesn't really matter. We definitely reward the advanced degree. We definitely see value in it at Accenture, but I think some of the additional certifications may not be applicable, and the salary you get as someone with an advanced degree probably would be the same as someone who has an advanced degree that doesn't have those certifications. And so a lot of it is like what you bring to the table, and if they think you're that much of a great hire and you have a unique skill set, they will extend that salary. I mean, consulting is one of the higher paying industries outside of maybe like, Wall Street or some of those things, but consulting is probably at the top of the pay scale. It's going to pay more than if you went and did a fellowship somewhere, or maybe just went into straight into a hospital or into industry versus coming into consulting. The pay is much higher. Right now is very competitive. Now is the time to really put yourself out there, because everyone needs talent, us included. So in terms of salary, I'll be as vague. I like to be very direct and tell, I like to tell people what the real deal is, but I don't get in trouble. So since it's being recorded. So I will say advanced degree, and I'll speak to like several years back, because we don't really have an advanced degree track anymore at this point in time. So I'll just give you the difference from before. So it's probably a $20,000 difference between someone who has an advanced degree and someone that has an MBA or a dual degree. It was about a $20,000 difference, sometimes a little bit bigger difference as well. Now it's probably even a bigger gap. It may be more like 35 to 40,000 difference.
Melissa, on that note, because that's a really interesting topic, I know just from the folks that register from this event, you got a good mix of folks ranging from undergrad to folks that have a little bit of experience. But I think a chunk of folks, just given our network, is folks that have gotten their MHA or MPH or MHSA and went into these management development programs or administrative fellowships. So I'm interested in what both of you guys think someone coming out of a Johns Hopkins or a Cleveland Clinic fellowship might do to leverage that experience at a top healthcare system to really go into consulting, and at what level?
So they wouldn't really have to do much. Like, we want people like that. We have medical doctors at Accenture. I've hired attorneys. I've hired people that are social workers. So it's really not much you have to do. A lot of this, and the reason we're on this call, is about the network. So you could be the most great person in the world, but if you don't know anybody and you don't talk to anybody, like no one's ever going to know that. So a lot of it is like the network, like network with Appcelerator, make sure you're connected with them, network with me. I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day. And I do actually respond to people that reach out to me, and I don't know people from a can of paint, but I still respond because that's just who I am. And so I think the biggest part is networking, whether you've worked with someone that works at Accenture, you went to school with someone who works at Accenture, you met us today, leveraging those relationships to make sure you're in front of the right people. And those are the people that tend to get in. It's like really being sure of what you want to do. You have to have a really good story about why Accenture and why consulting, because there's a million people that want jobs and that can come in and do a great job. But it's like, what is your story and how can you add value to what we do? So I think it's more so the network than anything else. Anytime I talk to people that are looking for a job, I'm like, tell everybody that you're looking for a job. Because a lot of times people don't know, and they will help you if they knew. And so it's just about spreading the word and making sure you're not shy about what you want to do and reaching out to people that can help. They may say no, or they may not respond, but closed mouths don't get fed. So
love that response. And just to tack on to that question, because you touched on it a little bit, but could you talk a little bit more about how you view relationships like or partnerships like with Appcelerator, how you intend to use the program or the pipeline to build more inroads for folks that are coming through for consulting roles?
Yeah, so from a practical perspective, I can't really recruit anyone. So just say you're not at one of our large campuses or core campuses for our entry level or MBA programs, and just say you're a Hispanic female and you have an advanced degree and you're really interested in Accenture. I can't, and you go to school at Michigan. Right now, I'm not recruiting at Michigan. We're recruiting from Ross School of Business, but we're not recruiting from School of Public Health and School of Public Policy like I used to a few years ago. So what happens is that you have to be in a relationship with one of our partner organizations in order to even be able to really recruit through me, because it's really a legal issue. Because if I recruit you and then Joe Smith comes along from another school and he's not diverse, and I'm basically like, no, I can't help you. They'll be like, well, why can't you help him, but you helped her? So we have to have parameters around the pipelines that we have. So Appcelerator is a pipeline. We work with other diversity organizations, but if you're not part of one of our core campuses and we wouldn't normally visit with you, you have to really be a part. And that's why it's important to stay connected with them. One story that I'm so happy about is one of the people that they brought to me when we first did the partnership. She got offered a job already. She's starting at Accenture in August. Has an advanced degree. She's coming into our life sciences practice. And that was probably within 60 days of when we started talking, because she was in their network. They sent me her resume and she was amazing. And I put her in front of the recruiting lead and they interviewed her right away and offered her a job. And so it's those type of relationships, but from a very specific and technical part, that's what we have to have, that relationship before we can really even deal with you.
That's awesome. Thanks for that response on that. Chelsea, you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to address one other question that came in the chat before we start to give some closing remarks. But I think that a couple people may have been interested in educational sponsorship at Accenture and whether or not, you can get your education furthered by virtue of being a part of the firm. What does that look like, Melissa?
So I would say most of the time, no, it isn't a usual thing. Like if I'm in corporate functions, I'm a recruiting manager. If I was like, oh, I want to go back to get my MBA, they'd be like, that's nice. Have a good time. Come on back. But no one's going to pay for it. So like for someone that, because Raisa, I believe that because Raisa was an intern, she was an advanced degree student, we did pay for one of the years of her advanced degree as part of her being an intern, receiving and accepting a full-time offer. We did pay that. And anyone coming now, since that program has gone down and we're just doing the MBA program with strategy, anyone that comes in as an intern with strategy and receives and accepts a full-time offer, we pay up to $50,000 of their second year of their MBA. And then if someone is an analyst, comes through Accenture as an analyst and decides they want to do our scholar program, we do have a scholar program, and they can do a leave of absence for 2 years, and we do pay tuition for that, but it's a very specialized program and you have to be approved. So it's not like hundreds of people, it may be like 20 people a year that are approved to do that. So when they come back, they're usually coming back at a level above, and their tuition is paid through that scholar program, but that's limited. So
Yeah, and I guess there are, I guess, other ways outside of, going back to school formally. There's, our My Learnings. We also partner with Pearl Site, which is a platform where you could learn, really anything under the rainbow, and they have hundreds of thousands of content, and it's a great way to skill up on a lot of core skills, like anything analytical. They have tons of classes on that. So I've personally taken advantage of that, and it kind of helps me from not having to go outside of Accenture to get certifications and pay for it, et cetera. So it's a really neat tool to advance your career and actually build real skills that would be beneficial at Accenture and beyond that.
Yeah, and to build on that, we also do some certifications for our analyst level. So our undergraduates that come in through intern and full-time, we offer like SAP and AWS and other training, some of them before they join and some of them when they've joined. And then just like I said, like if you're a high performer and you're like, hey, I want to get my CPA, normally the answer would be no, but if you're a high performer, they may say yes. So it's like, you just have to ask the question, but you have to kind of put the work behind it. And there's certain people that they will continue to say yes to. If you've done the work and you're in that category, they will make those allowances for that, just like anywhere else. Okay, great. So someone was asking about pivoting their career from hospital administration to consulting. So there's really nothing you have to do. I've hired a lot of people that were going to do fellowships or work in hospital administration, came into consulting. So they typically would have, they have the experience in the background. It's more so you would be coming into that health practice if you still wanted to do health. Now, if you're pivoting into consulting, you say, okay, I was doing hospital administration, but now I want to do finance. That's a completely different conversation, because you would have to kind of create a justification for why you would be a good fit within finance. But if you're coming from a hospital administration background, we really need people that have that experience within our health practice. And I've hired a lot of people out of like University of Michigan School of Public Health, School of Public Policy, that have an MHA or MHSA, that have come into consulting that are doing great work. So, and we recognize when people go back to get an advanced degree or an MBA, they are looking to pivot most of the time. So that's an expectation that we have within recruiting. And then there was another question, does the MHA have the same weight as an MBA in our organization? I would say, to be blunt, no. From a compensation standpoint, no. From a, you have great, experience and a lot, yes. But, just to be perfectly frank, an MBA carries more money, like salary wise, you'll get more money in most firms, especially consulting firms, if you have an MBA. So the consulting company, because typically when you go back to get an MBA for those 2 years, anyone doing a full-time MBA, there's a lot of classes around like business acumen, data analysis, leadership, a lot of the things that they're looking for in consulting. It doesn't mean that if you get an MHA, you're less intelligent or anything like that. It's just more so they do carry more value, and we do pay more if you have an MBA versus just an advanced degree. So if you have an MPH, you could start as a consultant, a management consultant. You could be a senior analyst, but consultant is a good starting point. If you're a recent graduate, if you're a MPH, if you have an MPH degree or another advanced degree and you have no work experience, that's different. You probably be at a senior analyst role, but if you did your undergrad, went back to work, and then went to get your advanced degree, you would be prepared for consultant level. I don't know, was there, I think that was the last question I saw.
I had a question just going back to something I saw earlier in the chat,
Mhm,
Melissa, about
mhm,
hiring people who are 1 or 2 years out of graduate school. They don't have plans to go pursue like another degree. If you've
mhm.
so to speak, like campus recruitment, what's a good entry point for those that are not necessarily on a campus right now? To
Yes, so the biggest difference will be money. So if you are, and you guys will see this if you're in any type of program, if you're an undergrad, if you're going back to get a degree, an advanced degree, if you're in graduate school, you will notice that if you recruit through the school process and through the campus process, the salaries and the offers are different than if you finish your degree, leave school, go into the workforce, the salary will not be the same. It'll be a significant difference because the weight of that degree tends to go down, just like a car loses value once you drive it off the lot. It's very similar with even though you have the same exact, you're at the same exact level, but the company is considering you differently. So if I hire someone as an MBA right now, they have an MBA offer. If they're an MBA and they come through an experience hire channel and they just want to be a consultant, that salary is going to be significantly less. So someone has a business management certificate, how would that benefit my application? Um, I mean, it's helpful. It really depends on the hiring manager. I think a lot of this is subjective based on who you're interviewing with and who is posting the job. Because I could be someone that values a business management certificate, and I could be someone that doesn't value an MBA either. It really depends on who you're getting in front of and what qualities they're looking for. At Accenture, we're trying to lower the amount of basic qualifications. So it's not like, oh, you need 15 years of this type of degree, 10 years of that. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, most people don't have all that, but it's just the nature of the beast where most hiring managers want everything, even though it's not realistic. And no, we do not sponsor. So, and I can't say that as a blanket statement across all of Accenture. However, if you live in the United States and you now or in the future would need sponsorship, you wouldn't be able to interview with us. But if you were like a citizen of another country and we had a role there, you could interview for that, but you wouldn't be eligible to have a role in the US.
I think another question that came in a separate chat, Melissa, was what kind of entry level positions exist within the firm with those with bachelor's, BS degrees or BA degrees, but they have no experience in consulting, and perhaps again they're not on a campus. Could you talk a little bit more about those coming from that perspective?
Yeah, so if you're out of school, like just say you're a year or two out of undergrad and you're looking to join Accenture, you would still look for analyst roles. The biggest difference is the way that they're titled. So the roles that I recruit for would say Accenture Strategy Analyst Development Program or Accenture Consulting Development Program, Accenture Technology Development Program. Anything without those markers would be a role to look at. It could just be strategy analyst or consulting analyst or technology analyst. We have engineering roles, specialist roles. So it would be the analyst level. If I would say if you're less than 3 years out of school, and if you don't have a lot of work experience or consulting, you would just need to look for that analyst title, because that's our entry level title. We have some apprentices, like we have an apprentice program. We have people that come in at level 12, but level 11 is our analyst. That's usually our baseline where we bring our undergraduates into.
Awesome. It's incredible to hear that focus on continuous learning and upskilling, reskilling. Okay, so really great discussion here. I think one of the remaining questions that we have and that folks may be wondering on the other end is just tactical next steps. So a lot of the people in the audience are either already enrolled in the Appcelerator program, are considering joining the program, or are just ready to go in terms of preparing for the recruitment process. What does tactical next steps look like for those that are either on a campus in the Appcelerator program or considering in terms of when they should be ready to go and get in front of Accenture?
Yes, so I would say anyone that is a current student, and this is specifically for undergraduates, so you're a junior or senior in college getting your bachelor's degree, definitely connect with Chelsea or Inno and have them connect with me, because we have a very specific process for that. And we'll be starting very soon with those interviews, probably late August, mid up to like early October in terms of that interview process. And I can get you into that process based on that relationship. Anyone that is in an advanced degree point or outside of getting their degree postgraduate, they probably should connect with you guys. I'm putting our career site in the chat because it's really important to identify a role that you feel like is a fit for you. We probably aren't qualified to find that role for you, but careers.accenture.com is a great place to start. You can kind of filter by industry, you can filter by region. We do staff regionally. So like Race is in New York, so she's considered in the Northeast market unit. I'm in Atlanta, so I'm in the South market unit, but you can kind of filter by those things and find a role. If you find a role that you think you're a fit for, please connect with them and they can get that information to me. But you can all connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Melissa Harper Davis on LinkedIn, and would love to connect with you. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer those questions for you via LinkedIn or via the Accenture. I'll leave my Accenture email as well. And I'm happy to connect there or LinkedIn.
Very, very bold of you, Melissa, to drop your email in the chat.
Hey,
Just
I've dropped it in meetings with 200-300 people. So I do have I think I have over 5,000 LinkedIn connections. And of course, not all those are people that I know very, very well, but I will accept, long as you have a picture, I'll accept your, because I don't know how people don't have a picture anymore. So, but you got to have a picture. And you don't have to write a note with it. You can just connect and I'll accept your connection.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your candor on this presentation, and Risa too, for sharing your story. I think it's really special the way you first connected with Melissa and how that relationship has come full circle. It really emphasizes that piece about relationship building and networking and the importance in this industry. So
Yes.
before we close and thank our presenters, we just wanted to share one more piece of content with the audience, and it's really around figuring out your fit within the consulting industry and allowing Appcelerator to help you do that. So hopefully you can see my screen here. I'm presenting some content about the value proposition of our program, about our relationship with Accenture, and deciding whether or not that this program or this industry might be a fit for you. And so, as Inno talked about earlier on in the discussion, we are really a last mile accelerator to help you go further and faster. And so take a look at some of the offerings that we have here on the screen in terms of the resources, in terms of the unlimited touch points with our coaching team, with our mentors like Risa, like our partners at Accenture, and the relationship that you could potentially build with Melissa. In the Appcelerator program, we spend a lot of time helping you revamp your application materials, which I know you all think is the most important part of the process. But we're here to tell you that that preparation that Melissa and Risa spoke to around case, around making sure you're getting in front of people and sharing your story, making sure you have a really tight narrative about what your interest is in this healthcare industry and how that relates to consulting is going to be very critical. And so we encourage you to check us out, look at our website, explore more about how we help you build those connections, about how we get you in front of industry insiders to learn about the projects that they're working on, to learn about how impactful inclusion and diversity is to them and to their organizations. And we would absolutely love to work with you. So we want to help you level the playing field and get you hired. So we encourage you to check out our website, connect with Melissa, Raisa, myself, or Inno for more information. And we want to thank you again for spending your evening with us.
Yes, thanks everyone. Thanks Chelsea and Inno for hosting.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.